All right, when you hear generative AI, your mind probably jumps straight to chatbots, right? But what if I told you its most important, most valuable job is happening completely behind the scenes in the super high-stakes world of finance? Today, we're going way beyond the chatbot to see where this technology is making its real, transformative mark.
So let me ask you, what do you think is the biggest AI story in finance right now? For a lot of us, it's those chatbots you see on banking websites. And look, that's not wrong, but it's definitely not the whole story. Not even close.
Because the real story, the one that's actually worth billions, is happening where no one can see it. It has less to do with answering simple customer questions and everything to do with tackling a massive, invisible crisis that's been plaguing the financial industry for years. So yeah, we are going way beyond the chatbot. While they get all the media attention, generative AI is quietly starting a revolution in financial compliance. Now, compliance, that's the complex, rule-bound engine room of every single bank and financial firm out there. And that's where the real heavy lifting is being done.
To really get why this is such a huge deal, you have to understand the sheer scale of the problem. Financial institutions are drowning in what you could call a compliance overload. It's this daily, nonstop battle against a tidal wave of incredibly complicated regulations that are always changing. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine your job is to read and perfectly understand an entire library packed with dense, technical law books. Now imagine that every single morning, new books are added, and old ones are completely rewritten. That's not an exaggeration, that's the actual reality for compliance professionals. It's an almost impossible task for humans to handle alone.
And the old systems they have in place, they're not helping. Take anti-money laundering, for example. The systems that are supposed to flag suspicious transactions are unbelievably noisy. A staggering 95% of the alerts they generate turn out to be false alarms. 95%. Just think about that amount of wasted effort. And here's where that waste just explodes. Every single one of those alerts, yep, including the 95% that are nothing, has to be investigated by a person. And that investigation takes, on average, anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes. When you start to do the math on that, the scale of the inefficiency is just mind-blowing.
And this is exactly where generative AI enters the picture. Look, this isn't just a slightly better version of the old software. It's a fundamentally smarter, entirely new kind of toolkit. It's almost uniquely designed to handle these messy, language-based problems that have totally overwhelmed the traditional tools. So let's just break down the difference. On the left, you have traditional AI. It's great at spotting patterns in numbers and following very strict rules. But generative AI is a whole other beast. Its superpower is on the right. It understands complex language, it creates new content, and crucially, it can reason with context. It can actually read and understand that library of law books we talked about. Here's a really great way to think about it. Traditional AI is like a security camera. It can tell you that something moved, but that's it. Generative AI is the experienced security guard. It can watch the footage, understand what's actually happening, write up a detailed incident report, and then even draft a new policy to stop it from happening again. It is a massive leap in capability. Okay, so that all sounds great in theory, right? But what does this look like in the real world? Let's dive in and see how this is being used right now to turn compliance from this manual, grinding process into something intelligent and automated. Let's start with a huge one, fighting financial crime. We're talking about anti-money laundering, or AML. This is one of the most resource-heavy jobs in a bank, and it's ground zero for that 95% false positive rate that creates so much wasted work.
So here's how GenAI just completely flips the script. First, instead of treating every alert the same, it intelligently prioritizes them, looking at things like customer history and outside data. Then, it automates the initial research, pulling info from all over the place. And finally, and this is the absolute game changer, it drafts the case notes and the official reports for the human investigator to just review and approve.
And the impact is just incredible. The companies using this are seeing a 40 to 60% drop in the time it takes to do an investigation. But the key thing here isn't just about saving money. It means the skilled human investigators can finally focus their brain power on the highest risk, most complex cases, which makes them way more effective at actually catching criminals. All right, let's look at another huge headache, just trying to keep up with that constantly changing library of rules.
This whole process is called regulatory change management. And believe me, it is a relentless, super high-stakes challenge. And once again, GenAI comes in like a super-powered assistant. It's constantly scanning all the regulatory sources for updates. When a new rule drops, it reads the dense, technical document and spits out a clear, easy-to-understand summary. But then it goes a step further and generates a draft of the new internal policy the company needs to stay compliant.
The result? A 60 to 70% reduction in the time it takes to go from a new rule being published to having an updated, compliant policy ready to go. That is a massive gain in speed, and a huge reduction in the risk of accidentally missing a critical change.
Now, this all sounds pretty incredible, but it's not a magic bullet. You have to be smart about this. Adopting this technology means you have to acknowledge and navigate some very real challenges that are on the road ahead. Some of the key hurdles are things like making sure the AI is accurate and avoiding those weird hallucinations where it just confidently makes things up. Then you've got huge questions around data privacy, what the regulators are going to say, and of course, retraining your people. This is why having a human in the loop, an expert who always reviews the AI's work, is absolutely essential for now.
But even with all those challenges, it's pretty clear where this is all going. With costs rising, rules getting more complex, and competition getting tougher, using generative AI in compliance isn't really an option anymore. It's becoming a strategic imperative, something you have to do to survive and succeed. Which leaves us with one last fascinating question to think about. As we move into a world where the AI can read and interpret all the rules, what is the new role for human expertise? It seems like the job will shift, away from all that manual grunt work and towards strategic judgment, handling the really tricky cases. The future of compliance isn't about replacing humans, it's about elevating them.